Now, as with seemingly all things San Francisco politics, the plot thickens. President of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, Shamann Walton, was accused in a sheriff's memo for his use of the N-word toward a black cadet at City Hall. This, as you can imagine, has caused quite the firestorm of discussion, with Mayor Breed addressing it today. Let's take a listen.
Using the N-word, towards a city employee, especially an elected leader, should not occur, regardless of the politics. There's no reason to, degrade or speak to a member of the city employees in such a way. And my hope is that the issue was resolved appropriately.
To join us now with more on that issue and to talk more about the mayor's response is the SF Standard senior reporter Josh Koehn. Josh, thank you for joining us right away. Despite this messaging from Breed, Shamann Walton, he doesn't seem to be backing down from this. He has been so critical of those who do not support him on this issue, how he handled it. What is his plan now?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for having me. Supervisor Walton, who is president of the Board of Supervisors, has more or less doubled down since these accusations became public last week. He was initially threatening to sue. This afternoon, he offered an amended statement basically saying he has no plans to sue the city, but he has basically said that the events that are being described by the sheriff's office are not accurate, and that it is due to his role in creating an oversight board of the sheriff's department after allegations of excessive force and requiring inmates to even fight in a gladiator-style fight. So he's still very much saying that he did nothing wrong and this is retaliation.
Well, Josh, something I have to point out is, speaking of suing, do you have any insight as to who he would be suing if he were to proceed? I know he did backtrack.
He did backtrack, so I'm not quite certain who he would sue. A bigger issue, though, is also that maybe he and the board could face some liability. We actually spoke with the cadet, Emare Butler, in an exclusive interview today. And when I talked to Mr. Butler, he told me he has not figured out his plans yet, but the way he laid out the incident was pretty startling. And it definitely shows that there are wildly different stories of what actually transpired.
Yeah, and speaking of that interview, we have a snippet of it we'd like to play where he himself describes the great harm that he felt when Shamann Walton, used that N-word. Let's take a listen.
I just felt embarrassed, mostly because, like I said, the whole place stopped. So once the whole place stopped, and seeing that he was putting on this show, I was just like, unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up. It was really more embarrassing than anything, and hurtful, because coming from him, he should know better. You would expect that he would know better, and given his position, you would think that, you would treat the people that's trying to keep you safe with some respect.
Yeah, and given what he just said, what are some actionable things that he can do going forward? What are his plans?
Yeah, he said he's still figuring out what he intends to do in talking to leadership within the sheriff's department. What's fascinating about this situation is that when I talked to Mr. Butler, he said basically that he tried to signal to Supervisor Walton that he would need to remove a belt to get through a security check. It was a Friday before Pride weekend, and apparently there have been times in the past where they've had issues with the supervisor's belt setting off the alarm. The reason that this security protocol is in place is because of the assassination of former late Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk back in 1978. So the reason for these security protocols is to make sure that no one can get a weapon through. And so for all of this to transpire over a belt is pretty shocking. And Mr. Butler went on to say that just because he is a black man and Supervisor Walton is a black man doesn't make it any better that, any use of the N-word.
Yeah,
which is still an allegation, I should say.
Yeah, and it's interesting also because the belt, removal is part of his own protection and for his own safety, and then it has blossomed into this. I do want to get to another layer of this complexity because the school board member, Ann Sue, she said during a board meeting that black parents place different values on education than parents from different ethnic backgrounds. Walton has in turn called for her resignation, and you described Mayor Breed walking walking on a tightrope in her response to all of this as well.
Yeah, we spoke with Mayor Breed today, and she has said that she feels like this situation with Supervisor Walton has been handled, obviously, with statements that have come out since that interview. This situation with Supervisor Walton and the cadet are very much not resolved. Supervisor Walton has called for the resignation of the school board member whose comments were very much seen as a racial stereotype against Black men and Black families. She is not, Mayor Breed, I should say, is not calling for the school board member's resignation, saying that it was a mistake and an issue with English as a second language, and obviously there's some learning and understanding needs to go on for the school member's part. Mayor Breed appointed this person after the recall in February, so there are political ramifications if the school member were to resign. There's a lot of racial dynamics going on in San Francisco politics right now, and it speaks to probably what you could say is just larger dysfunction at City Hall.
Yeah, and I know we don't have very much time, but you and I spoke about this prior to the show and how there is this elephant in the room, right? And there is already historically tensions between different ethnic communities, the Black and Asian community, and that adds an extra level of complexity here. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you have witnessed over the course of your reporting?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a lot of reporting about the spike in hate crimes targeting Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders over the course of the pandemic. Of course, the elephant in the room in this whole situation with the school board member is that many in the AAPI community feel like Black Americans are often the perpetrators of these crimes, whether they be attacks or incidents of discrimination. And that is very much an undercurrent to what is going on with the school board situation right now. And so these tensions can't be ignored, and Mayor Breed is definitely put in a tight spot because she appointed Ann Shu and now is not calling for her resignation. She has been critical of the allegations against Supervisor Walton using a racial epithet. And so right now, the dynamics at play are very fluid and very volatile.
Josh Koehn, we appreciate your reporting. We also appreciate the partnership that we have together with the SF Standard. Many thanks for you being here. I'm sure we'll see you again very soon.
Thanks, Dion.